He walks into the room and everything shifts. Not because she's the most beautiful woman there, not because she commands attention through calculated charisma, but because she carries something that most people have forgotten how to access: genuine spontaneity. While everyone else is performing their carefully constructed personas, she's simply being herself, playful, curious, unguarded, and refreshingly real. In a world obsessed with optimization, efficiency, and appearing to have everything figured out, she represents something both terrifying and irresistible to men: authentic feminine energy unfiltered by social conditioning. She laughs when something is funny, says what she thinks without calculating its impact, and moves through life with a kind of openness that most people abandoned in childhood. You might have encountered her and not understood what made her so magnetic. She doesn't follow the dating rules you've learned, doesn't play the games other women play, and somehow manages to be both innocent and wise, naive and profound. She embodies what psychologists call the fool archetype, one of the most powerful and misunderstood patterns in human psychology. Today, I'm going to decode the psychology behind the fool woman and reveal why this archetype represents both the most attractive and most dangerous feminine energy you'll ever encounter. The fool woman operates from a psychological paradox that makes her both magnetic and maddening to men who are used to predictable female behavior. She appears empty of pretense, agenda, and social calculation, yet this emptiness makes her incredibly full of authentic presence and genuine response. This paradox emerges from her relationship with social conditioning. While most women have learned to filter their authentic responses through layers of societal expectations about how they should behave, think, and present themselves, the fool woman has either never fully absorbed this conditioning or has consciously chosen to abandon it. Her apparent simplicity masks profound complexity. She might seem naive about social dynamics, but this naivety often reveals truths that sophisticated social players miss entirely. Her lack of strategic thinking in relationships doesn't make her weak. It makes her unpredictable and therefore powerful. The emptiness that defines her isn't vacancy, it's space. Space for authentic reaction, genuine emotion, and spontaneous response. This space is what most people have filled with performance, calculation, and social programming, leaving no room for authentic self-expression. Men find this paradox deeply attractive because it represents something they've lost in themselves: the ability to respond to life directly rather than through filters of what's appropriate, strategic, or socially acceptable. She reminds them of a part of themselves they've sacrificed to appear competent and controlled. The danger lies in mistaking her openness for weakness or her authenticity for naivety. Men who try to manipulate or control the fool woman discover that her apparent vulnerability is actually a form of strength they don't understand and can't overcome. Unlike women who present themselves as having everything figured out, the fool woman operates from what could be called learned ignorance, the wisdom that comes from knowing what you don't know and remaining open to discovery rather than closed around conclusions. This unknowing isn't intellectual deficiency, it's psychological sophistication. While others are trapped by their certainties, rigid beliefs, and predetermined responses, she remains fluid, adaptable, and capable of genuine surprise. This flexibility makes her incredibly resilient in ways that more structured personalities often aren't. Her comfort with not knowing allows her to ask questions that cut through social pretense and reveal important truths that others are too sophisticated to discover. She's not afraid to appear ignorant because she understands that apparent ignorance often leads to genuine learning. This psychological position is deeply threatening to people who have invested heavily in appearing knowledgeable, competent, and socially aware. Her questions can expose the emptiness behind their carefully constructed facades, making them feel vulnerable and defensive. The wisdom of unknowing also makes her an incredible mirror for others. Without preconceived notions about who people should be, she often sees who they actually are with startling clarity. This clear seeing can be either deeply validating or profoundly uncomfortable, depending on how authentic the person is. Men who are secure in themselves find her unknowing refreshing because it creates space for them to be genuine rather than impressive. Men who are insecure find it threatening because they can't hide behind their usual social strategies. The fool woman serves a unique social function that's both valuable and dangerous. She speaks truths that others can't or won't articulate. Like the medieval court jester who could mock the king without losing his head, She can reveal uncomfortable realities through her innocent observations and authentic responses. This truth-telling ability emerges from her lack of investment in maintaining social harmony at the expense of honesty. While others carefully calculate what's safe to say, she responds to what she actually observes and experiences. This authenticity can cut through layers of social pretense and reveal what's really happening beneath the surface. Her jester function isn't malicious. She's not trying to hurt people or create chaos. She's simply responding honestly to what she encounters, but honest responses in a world built on polite deception can feel revolutionary and threatening. This quality makes her invaluable in relationships with men who are genuinely interested in growth and authenticity. She provides feedback that's free from ulterior motives, social calculation, or strategic manipulation. She tells you what she sees without trying to change you or manage your reactions. However, this same quality can be devastating to men who are living behind carefully constructed masks. Her innocent questions and honest observations can reveal the gaps between their public persona and private reality in ways that feel exposing and uncomfortable. The key to understanding her jester function is recognizing that she's not trying to make fools of others. She's revealing the ways people are already making fools of themselves through inauthenticity and pretense. While the fool woman's authenticity and spontaneity are attractive, this archetype carries a shadow that's important to understand. The shadow manifests when her natural openness is met with repeated rejection, manipulation, or punishment from a world that doesn't value authenticity. The sacred clown shadow emerges when she learns that her genuine self isn't welcome in most social contexts. She might begin performing a version of the fool rather than being one, creating a persona around spontaneity rather than expressing authentic spontaneity. This shadow can manifest as manufactured quirkiness, performed authenticity, or strategic naivety designed to manipulate others through apparent innocence. When the fool becomes calculated, she loses the very quality that made her powerful and becomes just another person using a social strategy. The shadow can also appear as bitterness masked by humor, cynicism disguised as playfulness, or manipulation hidden behind innocent questions. The sacred clown who has been wounded too often might use her archetype as a weapon rather than a gift. Understanding this shadow is crucial for men who encounter fool women because it helps distinguish between authentic expression of this archetype and performed versions that serve hidden agendas. The authentic fool woman's behavior feels organic and responsive. The shadow version feels calculated and manipulative. The most tragic manifestation of this shadow occurs when the fool woman abandons her authentic nature entirely and transforms herself into a conventional woman who follows social scripts. This transformation might make her more socially acceptable, but it eliminates the unique gift she brought to the world. The fool woman serves as a powerful catalyst for transformation in the men she encounters because her authentic presence forces them to confront the gap between who they are and who they're pretending to be. This confrontation can trigger profound growth or defensive resistance. Her transformation catalyst function works through mirror effect. Because she's not performing a social role, she reflects back the authentic essence of others rather than responding to their personas. This reflection can be deeply validating for authentic people or deeply uncomfortable for those hiding behind masks. The catalyst effect is often unconscious. She's not trying to change people. She's simply being herself in ways that create pressure for others to be themselves. This pressure can feel threatening to people who have invested heavily in maintaining false identities. Men who are ready for growth find her presence liberating because it gives them permission to drop their social performance and explore their authentic selves. Men who are committed to their masks find her presence destabilizing because it threatens the carefully constructed identities they depend on. The transformation she catalyzes isn't always comfortable or easy. It often involves confronting parts of yourself you've been avoiding, acknowledging truths you've been denying, or embracing aspects of your nature you've been suppressing. This catalyst function makes relationships with fool women particularly intense and meaningful. They're not content with surface-level connections because their authenticity naturally draws out deeper truths from others. The fool woman operates from what could be called beginner's mind, the psychological state of openness, eagerness, and freedom from preconceptions that allows for fresh perception and genuine discovery. This mindset gives her significant advantages in relationships and life. Beginner's mind allows her to see situations, people, and possibilities that more experienced or cynical individuals miss. She's not limited by assumptions about how things should work or what's possible, so she can discover opportunities and solutions that others overlook. This psychological position is particularly powerful in relationships because it allows her to see each interaction fresh, rather than through the filter of past experiences or future expectations. She can respond to who you are today, rather than who you were yesterday, or who she thinks you might become. The beginner's mind also makes her incredibly adaptable, because she's not committed to fixed ways of thinking or being. She can adjust to new circumstances, learn from mistakes, and evolve her understanding without the ego investment that keeps others stuck in outdated patterns. Men often find this quality both attractive and frustrating. It's attractive because it keeps relationships feeling fresh and full of discovery. It's frustrating because it means she can't be easily categorized, predicted, or controlled through conventional relationship strategies. Her beginner's mind also extends to her approach to herself. She's not committed to being a particular type of person, or maintaining a consistent identity, which allows for genuine growth and change that more rigid personalities resist. The most evolved expression of the Fool Woman archetype is what could be called the Holy Fool, someone who embodies innocence and authenticity as a form of spiritual practice, rather than as personality traits. This dimension represents the highest potential of this archetype. The Holy Fool woman has consciously chosen authenticity over social acceptance, truth over comfort, and genuine expression over strategic advantage. This choice requires courage because it means willingly accepting rejection, misunderstanding, and social consequences for being real. Her holiness emerges from her commitment to integrity regardless of external pressure. She maintains her authentic nature not because it's easy or rewarded, but because she understands that authenticity is its own reward and that false adaptation leads to spiritual death. This dimension of the archetype is particularly threatening to conventional society because it exposes the emptiness of social performance and reveals the possibility of living authentically. She becomes a living example of an alternative way of being that challenges others to question their own choices. The Holy Fool woman often appears to be sacrificing practical advantages for abstract principles, but she understands that the practical advantages gained through inauthenticity are ultimately hollow and uncurtaining. Men who encounter the Holy Fool dimension often experience it as simultaneously inspiring and intimidating. She represents a level of authenticity and courage that most people admire, but few are willing to embody themselves. If you're beginning to understand how the Fool Woman archetype represents both the most attractive and most challenging feminine energy you can encounter, subscribe and hit that notification bell. What I'm revealing today about this psychological pattern could transform how you understand feminine authenticity and its impact on relationships. The power of the Fool Woman often lies in her innocence, not naivety or ignorance, but genuine openness to experience that hasn't been corrupted by cynicism or closed by defensive patterns. This innocence becomes a form of strength that can overcome obstacles that more sophisticated approaches cannot. Her innocence works as a disarming force that reduces defensiveness in others and creates opportunities for genuine connection. People who would resist direct confrontation or sophisticated manipulation often respond positively to her innocent questions and genuine curiosity. This quality allows her to access parts of people that others can't reach because her lack of agenda makes her safe to be vulnerable with. Men often find themselves sharing thoughts and feelings with her that they wouldn't reveal to more calculating women. The innocence that conquers isn't weakness disguised as strength. It's strength that appears as weakness to people who don't understand its power. It operates through attraction rather than force, invitation rather than demand, and curiosity rather than judgment. However, this innocence can also be her vulnerability when she encounters genuinely malicious people who mistake her openness for naivety and attempt to exploit her trusting nature. The balance between maintaining innocence and protecting herself is one of her ongoing challenges. The conquered territories aren't external achievements but internal access to her own authentic nature, to genuine connections with others, and to experiences that more defended people cannot access. The Fool Woman exists in ongoing tension between her natural spontaneity and the structured demands of modern life. This tension creates both her greatest strengths and her most significant challenges in relationships and practical matters. Her spontaneity allows for experiences and connections that more structured people miss. She can respond to opportunities as they arise, adapt to changing circumstances, and create moments of magic through unplanned, authentic response. However, this same spontaneity can create difficulties in relationships with men who need predictability, planning, and structured approaches to life. Her resistance to rigid scheduling, long-term planning, and conventional goal setting can feel irresponsible or immature to more structured personalities. The challenge isn't choosing between spontaneity and structure, but learning to balance them in ways that honor her authentic nature while meeting practical life requirements. This balance is particularly difficult because social pressure usually demands that she abandon spontaneity in favor of complete structure. Men who appreciate her spontaneity while also needing some structure must learn to create frameworks that provide necessary stability without crushing her natural flexibility. This requires understanding that her spontaneity isn't rebellion against structure, but expression of a different way of organizing life. The most successful relationships with fool women involve creating enough structure to handle practical necessities while preserving enough space for spontaneous expression and authentic response. The fool woman's openness and authenticity create a unique power dynamic where apparent vulnerability becomes actual strength. This dynamic confuses people who are used to power operating through control, manipulation, or dominance. Her vulnerability is powerful because it's chosen rather than imposed. She reveals herself not because she lacks the sophistication to hide, but because she understands that authenticity creates deeper connections than performance ever could. This chosen vulnerability disarms defensive responses and creates space for genuine intimacy that more protected approaches cannot access. Men often find themselves being more honest and authentic with her than they are with anyone else, because her openness gives them permission to be open. The power emerges from the courage required to remain vulnerable in a world that punishes authenticity. This courage is attractive because it represents something most people want but few are willing to embody themselves. However, the vulnerability as power dynamic only works when it's genuine rather than strategic. When vulnerability becomes a manipulation technique, it loses its power and becomes just another form of social performance. Understanding this dynamic helps explain why the fool woman can have tremendous influence and impact despite appearing weak or naive to people who judge power by conventional standards. Perhaps the most significant function the fool woman serves is as a mirror that reflects back the authentic nature of others. Because she's not performing a social role, she responds to the real person rather than the persona, creating a reflection that can be either deeply validating or profoundly uncomfortable. This mirror function works automatically because her genuine responses are calibrated to authentic rather than performed aspects of personality. She naturally brings out the real person because that's what she's interacting with. For men who are living authentically, her mirror provides validation and encouragement. They see themselves reflected accurately and feel understood in ways that social performance never provides. For men who are hiding behind masks, her mirror can be devastating because it reveals the gap between their public persona and private reality. Her authentic responses don't match their performed identity, creating cognitive dissonance that forces them to confront their inauthenticity. The mirror of authenticity function makes relationships with fool women particularly intense because there's no place to hide. She sees through social performance to the person underneath, which can be either liberating or terrifying depending on how comfortable you are with your authentic self. This mirroring also extends to revealing the authentic aspects of situations, relationships, and environments. She often exposes hidden dynamics, unspoken truths, and underlying realities that others miss or ignore. The fool woman represents not just a static archetype, but a journey of transformation that involves moving from unconscious innocence through experience to conscious authenticity. This journey is relevant for understanding both her development and her impact on others. The journey begins with natural innocence and authenticity that hasn't yet been tested by a world that often punishes these qualities. This stage is characterized by genuine openness and trust that hasn't been defended against negative experiences. The middle phase involves encountering resistance, rejection, and punishment for authentic expression. This is where many women abandon the fool archetype in favor of more socially acceptable personas that provide safety at the cost of authenticity. The transformation occurs when she chooses to maintain her authentic nature despite negative consequences, evolving from unconscious innocence to conscious authenticity. This choice represents a form of spiritual courage that transforms the archetype from personality trait to life philosophy. The completed journey creates someone who embodies innocence and wisdom simultaneously, maintaining openness while possessing knowledge, preserving authenticity while understanding consequences, and expressing spontaneity while accepting responsibility. Men who encounter Fool, women at different stages of this journey, will have very different experiences, from the refreshing innocence of the early stage to the profound wisdom of the completed transformation. The ultimate challenge for both the Fool woman and the men who love her is integration, finding ways to honour her authentic nature while meeting the practical demands of adult life and relationships. Integration requires developing what could be called mature foolishness, maintaining the essential qualities of the archetype while adding practical wisdom and social awareness that allow for successful navigation of complex adult responsibilities. This integration is particularly challenging in relationships where her natural spontaneity and authenticity must be balanced with the need for reliability, planning, and consideration of her partner's needs and preferences. The key to successful integration is understanding that maturation doesn't require abandoning authenticity, but rather expressing authenticity in ways that honour both individual nature and relational responsibilities. Men who want relationships with Fool women must also integrate by developing appreciation for authenticity, while maintaining the practical structures that support long-term partnership success. The integration challenge extends beyond individual development to creating relationship dynamics that honour both partners' authentic natures while meeting practical life requirements. The fundamental truth about the Fool woman is that she represents something essential that most people have lost: the capacity for genuine response to life as it actually is rather than as we think it should be. This capacity is both her gift to the world and her challenge in navigating it. Her psychology reveals the tension between authenticity and social acceptance that exists in all human relationships. She has chosen authenticity, often at significant personal cost, and her choice illuminates the price others pay for choosing social acceptance over genuine self-expression. Understanding her doesn't require becoming her, or even necessarily partnering with her. It requires recognizing the value of what she represents, and considering how much of your own authentic nature you might have sacrificed for social approval and practical advantage. The Fool woman challenges everyone she encounters to examine their own relationship with authenticity, spontaneity, and genuine response. She raises uncomfortable questions about how much of yourself you've abandoned to appear socially acceptable and practically successful. Her greatest gift isn't her entertainment value or refreshing unpredictability. It's her example of what becomes possible when someone chooses to remain authentic regardless of external pressure to conform. The men who understand and appreciate the Fool woman are those who recognize that her apparent simplicity masks profound complexity, that her vulnerability represents chosen courage, and that her authenticity offers something more valuable than social performance ever could. Share this analysis with anyone who needs to understand.